Oh, what's up, Kaiser 11? Good morning. How you doing, brother? Fantastic to see you on this wonderful day. And so right on time with that thumbs up. Super appreciate it. Hi, how are you? And may your day, evening, or night be going very, very well. And if you feel like giving a shout out to as to where you're shouting out from, let's hear it. See if we've got something to talk about. Right now, it's going great. As a matter of fact, I've been up for about 4 hours now, and I'm doing a piece on Elon Musk, which I think is quite funny. Um, which I mean, I've always had sort of an interest in Elon Musk, but not really for adulation reasons, but for reality reasons, and that is it goes along the lines of this. Is that I don't know. I mean, you might be like a diehard Elon Musk fan and love him and think that he's the savior of the planet and everything like that. And I'm not saying he hasn't done good things or brought awareness to good things, but like that environmental girl, she brought good awareness to climate control, and she didn't. She's not like even close to having anywhere near as much money as Elon Musk. But that being said, I decided that, and it's just been in the works for a while, or in molting around my head for a while, that somebody, because I haven't seen anybody do it, should do a little piece on Elon Musk in regards to, well, who is Elon Musk? Not that he's from South Africa or his family or anything like that, but what is Elon Musk? Right. So in the docu thing that I'm doing or whatever, I don't even want to call them documentaries or whatever, but in the, I guess, I don't know if they're called vlogs or docu-series or whatever, but in the piece of work that I started this morning, uh, the actual production of it, I really just proposed the question, what has Elon Musk invented? And I don't think anyone in the chat could tell me a single thing that he invented other than bullshit, other than he's a great salesman and he's a lot like P.T. Barnum was, and he is able to bring eyes and ears and truckloads of money to his cause. And he's done all of those things. But there's a cost to that. And there's a big cost to it. And the cost is that he should come out publicly and say that he has not invented anything. There is no invention that he's made. He did not invent one piece of Falcon 9. He did not invent the electric car. He did not invent the battery. He did not invent any rockets. He did not invent space travel. He did not invent Neuralink. Neuralink is a company which is based on something called BCI, which is brain controlled interface. And brain controlled interface has been used since the 1920s. So, since the 1920s, people have been able to move a cursor on a screen, you know, because they are paralyzed or something like that. Elon Musk comes along, he makes his company, he calls it Neuralink, very flashy name and everything like that. Oh, fantastic marketing and all that stuff like that. Plus, he's got billions of dollars of fucking backing, calls it Neuralink. And all of a sudden, people start thinking him as Dr. Dr. Musk, right? Dr. Musk, he is the guy. He implanted it in the guy's brain. He had nothing to do with it. He wasn't even in the operating room when it happened. He might have been in an adjacent room, which is like partitioned by like surgical glass, to be an observer or something for what physicians, doctors, neurologists, anesthesiologists, everybody involved in the medical community were performing on this poor soul, trying to help him have a better life, of which Elon Musk had no idea how any of those things worked. But if you read about Elon Musk and you read about his so-called inventions, they never ever mentioned that he invented anything. What they mentioned and what is said is that it was his philosophy of space travel, his philosophy of refueling ships or landing ships vertically. This is his philosophy. Well, Jules Verne had a lot of philosophies. Harry Houdini had a lot of philosophies. I have a lot of philosophies. Maybe one of my philosophies will come to fruition one day. One day, I have a philosophy that I'll have a glass of water on the table and I will be able to consume into my body that glass of water without actually having to touch it. That's a fucking philosophy. Okay? So, Elon Musk's philosophies on these things, which happen to be based and backed, not his philosophies based on, but his the inner workings of his company does happen to be backed by the one thing that he partially invented, which is something that he did in his 20s, and that was creating a payment transfer system, commonly known as PayPal. And he got a lot of money for that once he sold it. He didn't do it on his own, by the way. He did the code writer for all of that by himself. There are other people, but like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and a lot of these other people who are amazing self-promoters are able to get their names on the documents and then get all the money, or at least most of the money, off of the hard work of the people who actually had the know-how and knowledge of how to do and make these things. So that's how I'm doing this morning, my friend Kaiser 11. I am doing phenomenal. I would say I'm about a third of the way through of my, maybe less, maybe 20% of my way through on my project, which I will, I am in the process of putting it in the film editor, trying to get clips to match to audio files, try to cut out some dead space in audio and make it a viable product, which I hope will be accurate, peer reviewed, and certainly going to be peer reviewed, because anytime you make a product and you put it on YouTube, that's ultimate peer review. So these people who Terrence Howard, who showed up on the Joe Rogan show and had some ideas, and people were politely saying, "Oh, it's great. You come up with some ideas and you think about stuff like that." And meanwhile, they're snickering behind his back about what an idiot this guy is, whatever. And he's not an idiot, obviously. He's a thinking person. He has some ideas, and who knows, maybe some of them might be right. I don't know. I don't know the full gist of it, but I am only relaying what I saw, or the ideas of Eric Weinstein, who wrote a paper called The Theory of Everything. And he is not an astrophysicist. He's a mathematician who did graduate Harvard. And he decided that he was going to write a book called The Theory of Everything, which makes his book to prove that he knows and has solved the theory of the universe. This is Eric Weinstein, very convincing guy. When I first saw him, he has a brother too. He's also named Weinstein. I first saw him on Joe Rogan's show. Man, I bought into it. I bought into that like nobody's business. I was like, man, this Eric Weinstein is a smart guy, and he is a smart guy. And I just started listening. And I'm eating it up, and I'm just like, just like thinking this is amazing, and it was amazing in a way that I will give him credit, and I'll give Elon Musk credit for opening my eyes to things that I previously didn't know about. But that being said, just because somebody opens your eyes to something does not mean follow them like a herd of sheep, that you are not capable of analyzing thought or things like that. So that was like quite an eye opener. And Musk has been on my radar for these things for a long time. He basically, I call him the P.T. Barnum of the 21st century. Great salesman, but not a great mathematician, not a great inventor, not a great engineer. But they do give him the label, which is like a label you could give to anybody, and they give him the label philosopher. I'm a philosopher. You're a philosopher. We all philosophize. I'm philosophizing right now. Shit. Maybe some of my philosophies will come to fruition and come to truth. I don't know. Maybe some of yours will too. So that's his official title. Elon Musk's official title, aside from being CEO and major cash collector, is in the academia world, philosopher. So that's what he is, a philosopher and a showman, con man, what have you, and stuff like that. So Kaiser 11, I hope that clarifies a little bit how your question is about how am I doing this morning. I'm doing phenomenal, fantastic. I am enjoying the ability to have thoughts and think about things. But let's stop for a second here, just because it's early enough in the morning. This is Wat Boon Ruong, and is a Buddhist monastery. Inside, they have an abbot, monks, and stuff like that. I'm not going to go across the street to get a little bit closer to see the thing, but I can zoom in so you can see the beautifully ornate temple, which is covered in laced gold, supposedly. And it's quite a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful sight in the morning. And that's where the Buddhists practice their religion. Well, some Buddhists practice their religion. And it's also a place where some non-Buddhists pretend to be Buddhists practicing corruption. So that's all a way of looking at things and how you see them. I would say that today I am probably feeling better than I have felt psychologically and mentally for a very long time. And one of the reasons for that, and I'll tell you one of the reasons for that is I got off this medication that I was taking called Zoloft. Zoloft is a semi-psychotropic drug geared at altering your serotonin levels in your brain, which alter some things like your ability to process information, which is also part of the process of experiencing joy, happiness, sadness, and basically being a human being. What it's meant for is, or supposedly meant for is, and in much higher dosages, is for people who have conditions such as bipolar, where they are just incapable of controlling their impulse control. Now, the reason I got on Zoloft, I explained it in an Outcast, Outcast number 2, I think it is. I explained it. I had gone back to the United States. It was a very difficult time for me to go back there. I was living basically hand to foot, not able to get very good jobs due to my age and my ethnicity. And so I did a lot of dishwashing and box truck driving and stuff like that. I had, I don't want to say I had an apartment, but I had a room that was a 5x8 room with no window, no electric, no heat, no bed, no place to put your clothes or anything like that. So what I did was, I was, for a year and a half, I had my suitcase. I had 2 suitcases. I had a jacket and my clothes that I was wearing in the day. And I'd roll up my pants and use that as a pillow. And I would use my jacket as a blanket. And maybe I'd use one of my suitcases as some sort of either leg support or head support. And I would sleep there. I'd spend as little possible time there. There was sometimes access to a shower, and not always. And for that privilege of renting this closet, I was paying $650 a month, which seems to be quite a bit of money. I don't know why I ever gave them any money. And when I used to think about it, I used to think, man, aren't they supposed to be paying me to live under these conditions? That's what I really believed. I believed that the owners of this building, who are trying to make as much money as possible and filling it up with people in tiny little rooms, we're supposed to be paying the occupants as some sort of like Milgram or Milgram, I think it's Milgram experiment on human brutality. That's what I thought. But anyway, I stayed there for about a year and a half before I was able to get out. And the only way I got out was through COVID-19. When COVID-19 hit, I had been working in a pizzeria and pizza maker. And pizzeria was forced to close because all restaurants in New York City at that time and New Jersey and surrounding areas were forced to close in March of some date. I think it was March 18th. I can't be sure if that's the date, but that's when I comes to memory. Anyway, the same day that they closed the restaurant, which I didn't know they were going to do because nobody tells workers what's happening anyway. I opened up my phone and I looked at an app called Craigslist, and I looked for a job right away. And as it would happen, within 5 minutes of this pizzeria that I was working at being shuttered, I found an advert for box truck driver. Box truck driver, no experience necessary, just a valid license. Come on down for an interview and join us in our paper shredding operation. And I thought to myself, wow, well, that's not too far from where I am. I mean, maybe I don't have a car at this point, but by public transportation, it might take me an hour to get there, which is just fine. Whatever, I did. And I went there and I met this guy in his warehouse and he asked me a few questions, and then he told me that I got the job, but he just needed to photocopy my driver's license, which I did have, and Social Security, which I had, and I don't know, maybe some other document. So I was hired right away. So, the same day that they shut down the restaurants, I got this job working in a paper shredding company that catered to nursing homes along the tri-state or quad state area on the eastern coast. So basically, when I say quad state, I mean from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut. And when I say New York, I mean from Albany down to uh, Allentown, Pennsylvania, and beyond Allentown. So long hauls, long drives. Work days were generally 16 hours a day, and it wasn't just manual labor, but a lot of it was manual labor. I was driving a box truck, which I had no experience driving a box truck prior to this, on my own. And to boot, the man who hired me didn't want me to use MapQuest or anything like that. He said these things are nonsense because they don't allow box trucks to drive on residential roads and stuff like that. And none of that's really a law or anything like that. And me being fresh off the boat from Thailand, believed him. I thought, oh, okay, this guy's not lying to me. Why would he lie to me? He just hired me or anything like that. And ultimately, the price to pay for driving a box truck illegally on like a boulevard or parkway or something like that falls directly on the driver. So he had me doing these things where I would have lost my license. Had I lost my license, I would have lost my ability to make a living doing this. Fortunately for me, I was driving on the Jackie Robinson Parkway, and like 3 or 4 people driving around near me in their sedans. Arun Sawat, Sabadi lo, oh, Hom Kao. Oh, aloy, aloy. Talking at me, saying things. I'm driving. I'm like thinking, I'm like Gomer Pyle in the car. Oh, everything's just fine and everything like that. But no, everything wasn't just fine. And got eventually the enough energy in my brain to pay attention to what these people were trying to tell me. And finally, I did listen. And I was told by some lady that I was driving illegally on the Jackie Robinson Parkway, which is strictly meant for sedans or small SUVs, minivans, and the such. And that was my first lesson about driving on parkways. And she told me I could lose my license because of this, which I had no idea. Anyway, I did end up driving one more time on the Palisades Highway. Is that what you call it? The Palisades Highway in New Jersey, where it goes, once you get off the George Washington Bridge, you can drive up the Palisade up to, basically up the coast of New York to Connecticut and stuff like that. Anyway, I did do that one time because I was on the phone with the guy who's my boss, and he told me to do it. And I did start doing it, but I got pulled over by a guy in a pickup truck, and he told me, he said, "Listen, man, I understand. I know you just, because he must have, he knew a few things. I know you're just looking for somebody and stuff like that. But listen, if you drive on this Palisades Parkway, they're going to take your license. You could even get arrested, and God forbid anything happens, you might even be able to be, be put behind bars for a little while. And I was like, holy cow, this is some this is I've been totally deceived by the guy that's employed me, and I was like working hard as I could, doing 16 hours a day. And um an interesting thing was, he told me it was all right to do these things. But an interesting thing was is that I was working 16 hours a day, sometimes sleeping in the vehicle because I was like up in Albany, and like this, like he would tell me, well, you could pay for your own hotel room, or you could sleep in a cab, right? And I would sleep in a cab, like the pay wasn't very good. So I'd sleep in a cab for a few hours. I felt rested enough. I'd keep moving and try to get to my destination, which was my destination's basically at this time, it was during COVID, was to shred the paperwork that nursing homes had. So my route was like on the east coast of the United States, and I'd go to every single nursing home that this guy had contracts with, and they'd give me their documents, which I would in turn take to the truck and have shredded. Now, that's something you could put two and two together, figure that one out. I'm sure they still shred their documents. Whether or not they're shredding them to hide, their COVID deaths or treatments, I don't know. But I can certainly surmise that they're having their documents shredded to hide the exorbitant fees, which are like totally criminal, that they're charging insurance companies and people who actually have to pay to have their elderly housed in these nursing homes. And I will say that I've been to quite a number of nursing homes, of which I did go inside and I did have communication with some of these people who were in the nursing homes. And sometimes I would see, what looked to me like a nice old lady. She looked fairly fit, and she'd have a black eye. And I saw another guy. He was strapped to his bed. He said, begging, please let me out of here. Please, they're abusing me. Please let me out of here. And I'm thinking to myself, this one place that this happened was a place called Brenton Manor in Pennsylvania. And the staff there were extremely abusive. And they were abusive towards me. They were abusive towards anybody who wasn't white. Who wasn't black, excuse me. It's a mainly black-run institution. And I'm not throwing shade on black people. I'm just thinking that the people who were working in this institution were not very friendly. Anyway, so and incidentally, one of the so-called nurses in this place called Brenton Manor in Pennsylvania attempted to file a charge against me while I was parking the shredding truck nowhere close to her car. And her claim was that I had backed into her and caused a scratch in her car. And therefore I had to pay her some crazy amount of money, or get my insurance company to pay, or get my employer to pay. And fortunately, they have cameras in that parking lot, which proves that what she said was totally false. But anyway, inside of Brenton Manor, I had seen patients who had been physically abused, older people. I would never go to a nursing home when I get to be of age, if it happens to be in the United States. And especially one where I'm not by somebody of my own ethnicity. And even then, I don't trust them, because I would rather be treated by somebody in my family. And even then, I don't trust them because families are the ones who knock you off in the first place anyway. So, in Morton's Fork. So, my decision has been made that when the time comes, if the time ever does come and I get sick, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down on my nice, comfortable bed with a nice, comfortable pillow, and I'm going to close my eyes. If I, all of this, of course, happens to be if I am lucky, and I'll close my eyes, and depending on how sick I am, but if I'm sick enough and I feel death approaching, I'll close my eyes and hopefully pass on to the other side. But if I'm not quite sick enough at that point, and it is some sort of a lingering cancerous or horrific fate in store for me, I will simply get my hands on enough morphine to take myself out and have a nice little dream on the way out. Because I will not ever, ever, ever submit myself to what I have seen with my own two eyes in these nursing homes. And it's not just Brinton Manor. Brinton Manor just happened to be one of the worst of the cases that I saw. I saw this in multiple nursing homes. And I also saw, which I was really kind of unaware of, the nurses spreading COVID 19 purposefully among the people who are in the nursing homes. They're murdering them, That's what they were doing. Euthanasia, murder, whatever you want to call it. These people are fucking brutal. All old people represent to them is a job or an obstacle or something that they've got to get out of their way because they just want to get their paycheck, go home, and do whatever they want to do. And that is the quality of life behind nursing homes, unless you can afford to pay, I don't know, $1 million a year, for a safe nursing home institution, or something like that. So, which I don't ever intend on, or ever believe that I'll have that kind of money. So my solution is hopefully my bed will be comfortable enough and my pillow soft enough, and I'll be able to close my eyes and pass on into the netherworld and leave this mortal coil behind and hopefully not be reincarnated, and that my spirit and my soul are so happy, and hopefully my spirit and my soul will be released from this good morning, released from this whatever you want to call it. Anyway, so those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts on Elon Musk. I'm not quite done with the project, but I fully intend on finishing the project today. I have other things on the menu that are happening today, which are, I had mentioned previously about getting a marriage visa and having that marriage visa approved. You have to sign paperwork, certain restrictions on your bank account, like you have to prove you have enough money, stay where you are for a period of time, and then you're visited uh, somewhere in between the 30-day period by like civil agents who want to make sure that, number one, you are married to the person you claim to be married to, which I happen to be married to my wife for over 25 years, and we can prove that. And we do live in the same house. Unfortunately, we do have a man who's mentally ill who rents an apartment below us. He is heavily mentally handicapped and physically. Arun Suwakuta, sabadi lupa. Wani jahang hang rui. Ah, Bob. So, what do you have? So, um, they're coming today. So these agents are coming today. They're going to make an assessment. They're going to talk to a couple of the neighbors, find out how if we are married, if there are any problems and stuff like that. And believe me, over the years of 25 years or 30 years of being together, I can tell you that everybody's had some sort of a problem once or twice in their life. Um, Hopefully, everything will work out. And these civil servants or civil agents or civil police, or I don't even know what their title is. If they carry guns or whatever, they probably carry guns. Uh, I don't know what they're going to say or do. But to be quite honest with everybody who is in the chat at this point, I don't give a fuck anymore. You know what? If they don't give me my visa, fuck it. I'm going to be just fine. I have devoted my life to. I used to devote my life to my lover, and my lover, my wife, was everything in my life. That's the only thing that I cared about. Everything that I did was about my wife, and or before her, a partner I was with, female. Um, and I loved every single one of them, and I still do. I love everybody. I love every single person that I've ever loved, and I even love the people that I have had anger towards at times in my life. And it's the only way to free yourself of carrying this baggage is forgiveness and love. So, but I'm not. That's not meaning. I mean, oh, I need forgiveness or love for my past lovers, anything like that. Except for one of them. One of them, her first name starts with a J, and last name starts with a, or used to start with a P. I do have to find and dream and pray sometimes to forgive her for the mental anguish and torture that she put me through certain circumstances of expectation. And uh, whatever. I thought I'd get that little dig in there, you know, to let it out because that's how I feel, you know. Um, but but in saying that, I wish her all the luck. I wish every single person that I've ever had contact with, I hope they have only good health, happiness, and if they're fortunate enough to find wealth, along with that, all the more power to them. I don't hate anybody on this planet. Hate does not have room in my heart. Um, I am wary of things or aware or even sometimes paranoid. But other than that, that is my general disposition, which I try to follow, which is uh, a Christian way, but it's also a Buddhist way. So in Christianity, you have the seven deadly sins, and in Buddhism, you have the eight noble fold path. And essentially, they're almost word for word the same thing. So that's where my mind is at. My mind is at, and I remind myself as often as possible of all those precepts, which I think that because we are flawed human beings, we must always remind ourselves of these precepts because we are forgetful and we are also emotional. And if we do not continuously remind ourselves, we could lose our way on the path. And I've been lost on the path for a number of years before. And let me tell you something, as a person who has traveled that path, the path of Satan and the devil, and the path of hedonism and I didn't hurt any. I mean, I didn't physically hurt anybody more than once or twice, but um, which I'm deeply regretful for, deeply sorrowful for. Um, God has forgiven me. The only person who hasn't forgiven me is myself for any of my sins, and I continue on this journey and path through life, trying to make the best of what time I do have left to appreciate, share, and contribute to the benefit of the benefit of society. And that is something that probably most people come to the realization at a later age, of which I'm at a later age. And some of the listeners here who may be of a later age perhaps can uh, identify with some of these thoughts. Anyway, that being said, that I think that's enough said about that. Anyway, it looks like it's going to rain today. I'm definitely sure that these civil servants or whoever they are will be at the house today. I hope they're not looking for some sort of a payout or anything like that, because I have Christian and Buddhist values where I do not pay bribes and I will not pay a bribe. And if they don't like it, too bad. You know, I'm sorry. But I will offer them a glass of water and or soda or some sort of meal if my wife has cooked. More than welcome to eat and break bread. You know, that's the way I feel about that. So, um, continuing on this beautiful, gorgeous, wonderful day. So, a lot of thoughts running through the head, or probably not even all that many thoughts running through the head. That's like probably like a tiny little fraction of the head that these things it's like a needle point in what's called my cerebellum. Uh, Thinking, but that's where I'm at today. This guy over here we ran into the other day. Let me see if I have to take the stick out just to deter him. I'm not going to hit him, but to deter him from making any kind of a aggressive movement or anything like that. And he looks okay right now. He looks okay. He's letting me pass, so it's all cool. So anyway, yeah. So we keep marching on today. Actually, by the way, I don't know if you guys are watching the news. I'm not watching the news at this point, but I will be watching the news when I get back to the crib, just to see what's happening with this Ireland UK movement and see what they're doing, see what's going on. I don't know, sort of a spectacle in a way. I understand. I definitely understand the sentiment, and my own feelings of these types of things go along the lines of this. And I was going to say this yesterday, but I'm going to say it today. I'm I am a legal alien in Thailand. I'm legal. I put up money, contribute to society. I brought I brought a couple $1 million into the country. You know, I have records of all these things. I follow the laws. I do not have a criminal record, and I uh, I have the money in the bank for my visa. So I am a legal immigrant. I don't want illegal immigrants here, and nor would I want to come to Thailand and not see Thai people, because the name of this country is Thailand, right? And they have a culture, and they have food, and they have a way of life. And the whole reason for me initially coming here was to have that experience. And then when I was a young kid, before the internet was around. My mother told me if I was lucky, I would go out and be able to see the world and experience all sorts of different cultures. And apparently, since the internet has been evolving, uh, those that idea or ideals have become less and less and less prevalent. And with that come other manifestations of all sorts of things, you know, which you can just turn on the news and take a look for yourself and see what's going on. And that being said, if I went to Ireland, I would like to see an Irish pub, and I would like to see and listen to Irish people speaking Gaelic or in their Irish brogue. I would like to see these things. I would know I'm not going there so that I could walk. I wouldn't go there so that I could, walk down the street and buy a kebab that was made by some guy from the Middle East, Afghanistan, or Africa, or something like that. I'm not going that for that reason. If I wanted to, I would get a visa and a passport stamp, and I would go to Africa. And I plan on going to Africa. I would love to see Africa, and I would love to see Middle Eastern countries. I would love to, as a child, one of my greatest dreams was to go to Syria. I wanted to go to Syria so bad. I wanted to see, I was interested in archaeology. I was interested in all sorts of things. I wanted to go to Syria. The food was just absolutely out of this world. Fantastic food. But if I were to go to Damascus today, I don't know what my survival rate would be. So, and I'm not going to, I will say it's probably the blame of the United States government, to a large degree, um, killing millions of Middle Easterners, but also Middle Easterners killing millions of other Middle Easterners and stuff like that. And you call them Middle Easterners, but it's not really Middle Easterners. It's not an ethnicity, but it's a religion called Islam, which has viralized itself in the world. Anyway, we're at our favorite stop off point, which is so beautiful and wonderful. We have in front of us a rice field, and behind that and around that, we have houses of people who tend the rice field. And behind that, you can see the trees and stuff like that in the background. And behind that, if you could see it, but you can't see it now because there is too much cloud coverage, there is a mountain range. And what we are doing here is we are facing west, due west, and as we flew straight as the crow flies, we would end up flying over Burma, hopefully not stopping for a pit stop in Burma because Burma has a rather large civil war going on, and try to stay away from armed conflict. So that's west. And then, as we always say at this point of the Outcast, because this is Outcast number 5, we welcome to the Outcast. We don't do podcasts, we do Outcasts. We are the only ones, as far as I know, who has coined the phrase Outcast for a description of some sort of a video blog or whatever. But anyway, we are now facing east. And for those of you who have not heard my joke, the star of our show has yet to appear. And hopefully, at some point in the day, that the star of the show won't pass over our head, or the joke won't go over your head. So something to that effect. I kind of messed it up there, but I think you get the idea of what I mean. Anyway, so we continue on our walk, of which we're actually probably about 75, 80% done. There's a little market up ahead, which I do like to stop off at. My wife likes to eat some northern food, and like to pick that up for her. Sometimes I run into her mother there. She doesn't live too far away. Her mother is absolutely beautiful, wonderful woman at the age of 73. Um, Quite good looking, by the way, for a 73-year-old woman. It might surprise you. And we'll see if they have any northern food for breakfast. Arun Suwati! Oh, Manila, ciao! Sawadee, sabari lupa! What is your phone talk, man? ไม่รู้อ่ะผมดูเขียนว่ามันฟอกนี่หน่อยบายบายขอบคุณหลายๆนะว่าเจอพายายายพันธุ์หรือยังพี่ไปแล้วอ่ะอ๋ออ๋อเสื้อเขาวนี่ที่ก่อนนะอ่าโอเคบายบาย so anyway a very nice lady. I like to say hello to her. So I kind of forget where we were at, but a lot of things to be grateful for. Yeah, we breathe. Oh, one of the things that we always say on this outcast is, and especially say it when we get to that point in the outcast where we have that vista of the west and vista of the east, is that we point up the camera to the sky and we say, "That's a beautiful sky." And there is not a man, woman, or being on this planet who has enough bars of gold, pieces of silver, fiat money, or Bitcoin to buy it. They can't buy the sky, at least not yet. I do remember when they first started selling water in a bottle back in the 80s. I was like flabbergasted. I mean, I was like, who's stupid enough to buy water out of a bottle? It comes out of the tap from the Adirondacks. And it's perfectly clean. But anyway, those days are long and gone, and everybody drinks water out of the bottle, regardless of where they even know where that water came from. So, yeah, so there's that. You know, fortunately, we haven't seen any animal accidents this morning. Last few days, we saw a couple of animal accidents. Those kind of unpleasant to see. Haven't seen those today, which is always a good thing. We don't want to see those kinds of things. And I try to avert the camera from it if possible, because it's not pretty. But it is a fact of life, you know. And being a fact of life does not mean it should be censored in any way, especially if the guidelines on this channel, which they are 18 and above. So you should be able to have the grasp of life and death pretty soon. And if you don't, you're going to be living in a totally I would like to disabuse you of some fantasies that people who don't see death before the age of 18 believe. Things like you're going to live forever, time will wait for you to accomplish everything you want to do in life. Now, I think you should see death. I think you should see in all forms and functions and be grateful for being alive. And that will give there's nothing like motivating somebody than seeing somebody being or not being, but post mortem. So we'll see what YouTube has to say about all that and whatnot. This incidentally, I only see 3 users and 2 likes today. The viewership has been going down the last couple of days. Primarily, I think because I made some analysis on religion, and so I may be getting censored, or I may be offending some of the people who were listening to me before because I didn't talk about religion. Uh, and maybe I shouldn't talk about it. I can talk about spirituality, but if you talk about spirituality, then you're stuck in a catch-22, aren't you? So you know, I don't know. I will end. Well, not end, no. But I'll tell you a joke. One day I was sitting in a bar and I was having a beer, bartender, chatting up the bartender, whatever. And a horse walks in. Horse walks in, walks over to the end of the bar. Bartender walks over, hands the horse a pail of ale. The horse bends over, starts lapping down that pail of ale. Pretty soon that pail of ale is empty. And the horse looks up at the bartender, and the bartender gives the horse another pail of ale, of which that horse promptly consumes. So, and then after the second pail of ale, the bartender says to the horse, says, listen, it's about time you pay your bill. You know, we don't run up big tabs for horses around here. And then the horse says to the bartender, he says, well, I think therefore I am. And then the bartender says, you're getting the cart before the horse. Not original, not definitely not an original joke of mine, but amusing, entertaining, nonetheless. And I did rather enjoy that joke, and I enjoyed telling it. So we'll have to see what the day brings. Today could be a make 'em or break 'em day. You know, I might be denied my visa staying in the United States for whatever reason. You know, I'm staying in Thailand for whatever reason. I don't know. I'm sure there are plenty of reasons people could think of. You know, make them up and do whatever they want, or simply give me the visa stamp in my passport and say, "See you next year." And that's hopefully what the outcome I'm looking forward to. But I also did mention in a few outcasts before that one of the reasons I like staying in Thailand and living in Thailand is the lack of bureaucracy. And it really is this lack of bureaucracy that there is in the United States or Europe and other places where every single day you have to sign your name, sign a paper, read a notice, you know, or whatever. And years and years and years and years ago, it was explained to me that this was just a tactic to keep the masses occupied, along with the tactic of importing narcotic substances into like a pharmacy. Hey, hey, he got too close, and I had my stick on the other side, but he didn't get me. He was gonna bite me. That guy, that what he was coming over for a bite. Ah, run suwa kunta sa bali lupa. ผมไม่ค่อยตีบ้าจะให้มันกลัว So, as I was saying, what we were saying, um, yeah. So, hope for the best result. There's always that old saying, you hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. Unfortunately, I've always sort of like created the worst, hoped for the best. But anyway, that being said, hold on a second. Let's give me a second to settle my samurai sword, samurai stick. I don't want people to think I'm carrying something around as an act of violence or anything like that. And you really don't want that. But it's just as a deterrent for dogs. And I will mention the thing about dogs here is that they do have a fairly high rate of rabies. And if you get bit by a dog, you must go and get rabies shots. I've never been bitten by a dog in Thailand. I've had friends who have been bitten by dogs in Thailand, and they have to go for 7 days in a row and get these massive injections massive injections into their abdomen, kill the rabies virus before it gets too strong. But in saying that, I will tell you that rabies, there is no cure for rabies once it gets to